Hello and welcome to another fantasy football tournament series, number 50. The Big 5-0. We made it to 50, guys. I've had this series going on for a year now. I started in August 2017, and this is a milestone for this part of my channel, one of my favorite parts of this channel that I really enjoy doing. I know you guys like it as well. And I hope this continues. May there be many more to come. This one is new. A little bit different. An idea that was floating around in my head for the past 2 or 3 months. The Civilizations Cup. And this is a tournament that is based where the participants in it are the modern day locations of places that were once the seat of great empires or thriving of a collection of humans that had settled in that area. And these are the names that you open up a global history textbook in high school, college, in a library, wherever, and you see these names constantly pop up in the discussion of human history. And we have a nice spread here. Countries from South America, North America, Africa, Europe, Asia, and even one Oceanian representative, so this sets up very nicely. It's an old European championship type of format before it was expanded to 24 teams. So 16 teams, 4 groups of 4, 2 advance, quarterfinal, semifinal, bronze medal, final. Straight to the point. And did a seeding system here, put all 16 nations into 4 pots of how I would perceive their ranking, and then made a draw from there. Try to make things as balanced as possible. Host nation selected was Peru. Picked Peru because, one, it's a footballing mad country. Qualified for the World Cup for the first time in 36 years this summer. 2, because there's not very many fantasy football series that I've made so far where a South American country is the host. And then for a third reason, they were also the seat of a prominent empire, one of the most prominent ones in the 2 Americas, which was the Incan Empire. One of the national team nicknames of the Peruvian national team is Los Incas, the Incas. The other one being Las Blanquirrojas, the white and reds. So I picked Peru. I think this would be a pretty sick tournament. So let's go through the groups, and I'll explain briefly why the countries were chosen and what civilization or empire they represent. So in Group A is host nation Peru, the Incan Empire, famous for ruins such as Machu Picchu and the Nazca Lines. In their group is Sweden, Vikings, ancient Nordic culture, Beowulf, part of the broader Scandinavia, but I picked Sweden because they seem to be at least the most informed Scandinavian country at the moment. Also in the group, China, very much so speaks for itself. One of the oldest civilizations in the world. Some archaeologists and historians believe the oldest. Rich history, the People's Republic of China, dating back well before BC, aka the Common Era. The Great Wall, constructed by the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huangdi. Very, very long historical presence. Chinese society. Warring factions, different provinces. And you have to include China in a tournament like this. That goes without saying. Another team, the last team in Group A, is India. Now, you see 2 Asian teams in this group, China and India. Well, that's because this tournament, Asia has the highest number of spots, 5. Asia has produced several of the world's historical civilizations. So, because of that, and because they have the most number of spots in this tournament, with 5, one group has to contain 2 Asian teams. It's unavoidable. India, very much so famous for the Indus Valley civilization, Mohenjo-Daro, um, dating back a couple thousand years, the origins of the Hindu religion, and said to be theorized by a lot of archaeologists as the first civilization that had an early form of human of plumbing system in inner cities. Group B, another country that goes without saying, of course, a classic choice. Italy. Italy representing probably the most famous empire in the history of the world, Rome. The Roman Empire, which expanded all the way from northern Africa to the British Isles and from Portugal to Syria at its height. And it all started on the boot of the European continent in Italy. Have to include Rome. Roma. In Group B with Italy is Iran. Iran, the Persian Empire, one of the strongest in the history of West Asia. Think Xerxes and the Persian immortal soldiers, and the whole thing with Sparta and the battling of King Leonidas in 300. If you saw the film 300, so that was the empire. Iran themselves having a very long, storied history as well. So Iran here representing Persia. The only Oceanian representative here is New Zealand. Why New Zealand? Well, Maori. Maori. What is Maori? Well, before British settlers came to New Zealand and broader Australia, New Zealand had indigenous people that were known as Maori, who were part of a Polynesian island group. And Maori culture, Maori ethnicity is still very prevalent in New Zealand today. Many people that live in New Zealand have Maori descent. Several national team players, including that of Winston Reid, are of Maori lineage. And New Zealand also, they're famous, their rugby team of doing the haka dance, that intimidating move set to get into the minds of the opponents of visiting rugby teams as well. So Maori culture still very much alive and thriving in New Zealand, and wanted to pay respect to them here because New Zealand very much so is unique in this regard. And the last team in Group B is Macedonia. Macedonia, Alexander the Great, whose empire expanded through his conquest from Greece all the way to the mountains of Pakistan and India. Alexander the Great, one of the most well-known conquerors in the history of the world. So Macedonia included on this list. Group C. Group C is Mexico. Mexico, the seat of Tenochtitlan, the Aztec Empire. One of the more famous Mesoamerican empires, especially of the CONCACAF region, the Aztecs. Moctezuma, Quetzalcoatl. Think of ruins such as Chichen Itza and others that are located in the southwest province of Oaxaca. Mexico, of course, have to be. You know what's interesting about Mexico, guys? A little bit of a cool story of the mythology of ancient Mexican culture. You see the eagle? You see the eagle on the cactus and the snake in its mouth on the flag? That actually comes from the ancient Aztec story of how the capital of the empire was founded, that on the site that is present-day Mexico City. The story goes that when the Aztecs were still a nomadic tribe, not really an empire yet, they were told by God that they would find the place to build their capital, where they found an eagle resting upon a cactus with a snake in its mouth. And lo and behold, it happened. It was on an island, and that was where the seat was built. And it has lasted to this day because It is now the site of the modern-day Mexican capital. So, a little bit of a history thing there. I thought that was really, really cool. So Mexico representing the Aztec Empire here. In their group, along with them in Group C, is Egypt. Egypt is another team I think that goes without saying, to be honest. Egypt, pharaohs, pyramids, Sphinx. Of course. We always study this in our history books. There's really no explanation that's needed here. If you haven't been to Egypt, I strongly recommend you do. It's a great tourism site if you ever wish to go there someday. You know, the ancient Egyptians, one of the oldest civilizations on the African continent, and one of the most heavily studied ancient civilizations ever, if not the most heavily studied. In their group is Greece, of course. Greece, the birthplace of democracy. Herodotus, Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, philosophy. A lot of words that we use in everyday language in English comes from Greece. A lot of art, poetry, mosaics, ruins come from Greece. Greece truly was the bedrock of the height of human civilization, which is why a lot of elements of the Renaissance try to emulate that of the great thinkers, the enlightened thinkers of ancient Greece. So Greece, of course, Greece absolutely needs to be mentioned here. And lastly in their group is Mongolia. Mongolia. Genghis Khan. The largest empire in the history of the world. One of the greatest and bloodiest conquerors of all time. Genghis Khan, stretching from the flat plains and the steppes of the countryside of Inner Mongolia, all the way as far west as Poland. So, Genghis Khan, Mongolia, there in this tournament. And in the last is Group D. In Group D is Nigeria, home to the Yoruba and Igbo peoples, as well as the ancient civilizations of Nok, the Oyo Empire, as well as the Kingdom of Neri. All of these dating back to the 11th century BC. Nigeria, one of the sites where ancient West African civilization was at its highest and its most prominent. And Yoruba and Igbo people, still around to this day, composing large swaths of Nigeria's present-day population. In their group is Iraq, Mesopotamia, the Fertile Crescent, and civilization that gave us cuneiform, one of the earliest manuscripts forms of human writing and communication, ziggurats, the step pyramids, Iraq. Also with them is the Republic of Ireland. Ireland, I chose Ireland in this tournament as well because Celts, ancient Celtic warriors. You know, in a land that is as ancient as it is in vast greenness of its landscape. And the last team in this tournament and in this group is Guatemala. Guatemala, a CONCACAF team. One of only two CONCACAF teams, the other one being Mexico. Guatemala, the seat of the Mayan civilization, the Mayan Empire. Very well known for their architecture, their mathematics and calendar system, their knowledge of ancient astrology and studying of the stars, way ahead of most peoples at the time. And one of the earliest Mesoamerican civilizations as well, the Mayans. And Mayan culture is very much so still around today. Maya itself, a language that is spoken throughout Guatemala, parts of southern Mexico and Honduras and El Salvador, but mostly concentrated in Guatemala and regional areas in the countryside in Petén. So these are the 16 countries. And keep in mind, guys, two things before I start. This is not a celebration of conquest or anything like that. It's just giving a nod to history and making a tournament based on something that is a unique idea. So take it for what it is. And the predictions based on here are not indicative of which is the superior or was the superior civilization. Keep in mind, this is a strict football channel, 99.9% of the time. And the predictions made will be based on the quality of the footballing teams, not, this civilization is better than the other. That's not, I don't do that. So let's just jump right in. So in Group A, Peru, Sweden, China, and India. There's two very clear favorites here. Maybe China can pose an outside threat under current manager Marcello Lippi. They've actually improved in recent years, and they came 1 point away from sneaking into the playoffs in 2018 World Cup qualifying. But I think it's too much. Peru and Sweden, by far and away, should come through this group. It's a matter of who finishes first. I actually think that they would probably both finish on 7 points, tie each other, and I give it to Peru to top the group on goal difference, give the home team the benefit of the doubt. India will probably finish in last with 0 points, and China would come in third. I don't think there's really much explanation that is warranted here. So Peru and Sweden would go through. Now, it does not mean there won't be any upsets in this tournament, because this group is a lot tougher than it looks. Macedonia is an up-and-coming Yugoslav team. Actually, in a previous video a few months ago, as an early prediction, I have Macedonia winning League D of the UEFA Nations League and securing a spot in the playoffs to qualify for Euro 2020. I think they will win League D. Macedonia also gave Italy a scare in 2018 World Cup qualifying. They were paired into the same group as they are here. I believe Italy had to come from behind 2-1 to win 3-2 away from home. Macedonia is actually a decent team and a side who can qualify for a major international tournament sometime in maybe not the immediate future, but probably within the next decade. They have critical players such as Alexander Tchaikovsky. I know Ivan Tchaikovsky. Goran Pandev is probably their most seasoned player. I think he's the highest scoring ever in Macedonian football history. He plays in the Serie A in Italy. And it can be argued that Macedonia is one of the best Eastern European countries to have never qualified for a major tournament. They come from the Yugoslav region. Them and Montenegro are the only two that have not qualified for a major tournament. Montenegro, at least, as an independent country. So Macedonia could play spoiler in this group, and I think they will. Get the revenge on an Italian team that is still sore for missing out on the 2018 World Cup. And it's no fun predicting fantasy football tournaments without throwing in a couple of surprises here. Iran had a great World Cup. Unlucky not to come through their group. Again, like I mentioned in the video a couple days ago, Mehdi Taremi, he scores those chances that come his way. Iran's in the round of 16. Iran right now, arguably on current form, are the best team in Asia. Maybe you can make a case for Japan, but I would say Iran. Due to their defense, I would say Iran at the moment. And a leading contender to win the next AFC Asian Cup early next year in just a few months' time. New Zealand would probably be on the outside looking in for this cup, unfortunately. But you know what? I'm going to predict this based on Italy still stinking a little bit. They're slumping form. Picking Macedonia to win this group. I said it. Macedonia are a quality side. And I'm picking Iran to come in second. We have to have an upset somewhere. Italy will not come through. Macedonia and Iran. Yeah. Group C. This video is getting a little bit longer than I would like. Mexico, Egypt, Greece, and Mongolia. Well, Mongolia are out. Mongolia, very much so one of the world's minnows. I think they are actually one of the earliest teams in the world to be eliminated in World Cup qualifying. They were eliminated in World Cup qualifying way back in 2015, and that was for 2018 World Cup. So they were eliminated about 3 years before the World Cup was played. So Mongolia, they don't really have the footballing culture there. They are one of the worst national teams in the entire world. So they would probably get wiped away in this group and not score a single goal. And then it's between Mexico, Egypt, and Greece. Mexico would probably win this group. I say Mexico wins it. They are the better team, the best team here. It's a little bit self-explanatory. And then between Egypt and Greece, I would love to pick Egypt. I'd love to pick Egypt, but we're a total mess right now. So Greece would come through. Greece would come through in second. And in Group D, Nigeria, Iraq, Republic of Ireland, and Guatemala. This is sneaky tough. That's difficult. Nigeria would probably win this group. Guatemala would... I don't think Guatemala would come through. And then second between Iraq and Ireland. Now, you would think Ireland, but as I've mentioned many times, Iraq is very much a tournament side. They're a tournament type of team. I think I'm going to give it to the Republic of Ireland, though. I mean, Nigeria themselves are by no means safe. You know, they did not do so great at the World Cup. They had 1 win and 2 losses. But I guess they get a pass because they lost to the eventual World Cup finalist, Croatia, and then they lost right at the end against Argentina, who must not be named. But Nigeria, if Nigeria doesn't come through a group like this, something's wrong. So Nigeria, and I'd give it to the Republic of Ireland. Martin O'Neill's men. So these are the teams that would come through. So let's get to the quarterfinals. So the quarterfinals, we have Peru versus Iran, Mexico versus the Republic of Ireland, Macedonia versus Sweden, Nigeria versus Greece. So in the upper bracket, you have one team from 4 different confederations: Peru, South America; Iran, Asia; Mexico, CONCACAF; and Republic of Ireland, Europe. So the first match, Peru versus Iran. Host nation Peru versus Iran. I would say Peru would win this. They would win 2-0. But the scoreline would be a little bit flattering because Iran will put numbers behind the ball and really make Peru fight for it. Mexico versus the Republic of Ireland. Mexico, but it wouldn't be a blowout or anything. Ireland are always a gritty, stubborn side. So I would say, Peru would beat Iran 2-0. I say Mexico would beat Ireland 2-1. Macedonia, Sweden. That'd be an interesting setup. Would give it to Sweden. Yeah, I would give it to Sweden, but I don't think it'd be anything like a convincing, thumping victory. I think like a 1-0 to Sweden. The Nigeria, Greece, this might be one of the more evenly matched fixtures of the quarterfinals. I would give it to Nigeria. They get revenge for losing to Greece in the 2010 World Cup group stage. Both of them failed to advance past that group, by the way, but Greece did beat Nigeria, so I think that Nigeria would get revenge. So moving on to the semifinals of the Civilizations Cup. And wow, I did not expect that. We have 4 semifinalists from 4 different regions. Again, South America, North America, Africa, and Europe. Host nation Peru versus Mexico, and Nigeria versus Sweden. Ooh, this is hard. This is very hard. 2 Latin American teams playing each other. Peru is at home. You'd think that maybe Peru's lack of finishing in the World Cup in 2018 would have to be taken into account. They really should have beaten Denmark in their opening match. They could have gotten a draw with France. Mexico weren't that very convincing either outside of the victory against Germany. So this is a toss-up. I'll say 1-1. And Ochoa makes a couple of crucial saves for Mexico. If it goes to penalties, I favor Mexico because Ochoa and his heroics, to be honest. Then lastly, Nigeria versus Sweden. Would love to pick Nigeria here, but I just think that the way that Sweden sets up, I think that Nigeria would probably play into Jan Andersson's hands here, and Sweden would come through this. But, like I said about Sweden during the World Cup, they're not a great side with very, very much individual quality. But the fact that they went on this special run that they did go on, when they really had no business, probably not even any business, qualifying for the World Cup, they got to the quarterfinals with pretty much no star player on their team. Compared to Swedish teams that went to the World Cup in the past, as recently as the early to mid 2000s, the generation of Henrik Larsson and Lundberg. This current Swedish team is not very gifted, but they got their tactics right in nearly every game they played. And they toppled Italy and the Netherlands, and they beat France in qualifying to get to the World Cup. And the way they set up against sides, they're very stifling. They're very frustrating. Yeah, I think they would scrape past Nigeria here. Maybe another 1-0 or 2-1. I'd love to pick Nigeria here. I like Nigeria. I would love to pick Nigeria. I'm going to go with Sweden. Yeah, I'm just going to go with Sweden. Just another 1-0. Then the third place game between Peru and Nigeria. I'm going to go with the host nation. Host nation, Peru wins this. I'll say high scoring, very exciting, open game with Paulo Guerrero and maybe Ahmed Musa both getting on the score sheet. 3-2. 3-2 to La Blanquiroja, host nation, Peru. So that means Nigeria would finish in 4th place in the Civilizations Cup. That's a good finish. Host nation Peru would finish in 3rd in the bronze medal. The final would be Mexico versus Sweden. What do you know? That's actually a rematch of the World Cup that we just had a month ago, where Sweden actually tactically outclassed Mexico 3-0. However, I don't think they're a better team than Mexico. I just think it was an example of Juan Carlos Osorio really getting his lineup selection wrong, and Mexico just crumbling under the pressure when they conceded 3 goals, all of which came in all of which came in the second half, in the last half an hour of each game, of the game. Penalty, an own goal. The way that both teams were set up for that match, Ian Anderson got the best of Juan Carlos Osorio. Now, assuming this tournament is being held in the post Juan Carlos Osorio days, he's no longer the manager of the Mexican national team. That position is now vacant. I have a really hard time thinking that Sweden are of a side that is of higher quality than Mexico, though. But that's the thing about tournaments, guys. It doesn't matter if you're the better. It doesn't matter if you're the better team overall. It matters you're the better team on the day, and if results go your way. And for Sweden, it did. But would this be a repeat of that? The 3-0 drubbing against Mexico on the final match day of Group F? I don't think so.